At the beginning of the film, we see two boys being taken as prisoners in a cart by a man named Tiwo, destined to become slaves in a small village. The two boys, named Shin and Piao, become close friends after this event. Despite going through many hardships, the two share a common dream: to one day become great war generals. This desire was born after they once witnessed a general named Aok leading an army of warriors. In their free time, after collecting firewood and chopping logs, Shin and Piao would often gather in the forest to practice with wooden swords they had crafted themselves. Since childhood, the two had always trained together with the goal of improving their fighting skills and becoming faster and more agile. Through their daily routine of practice, they grew into skilled and relentless young warriors. One particular day, while they were training, a general named Chung passed by and noticed Piao's talent with the sword. Impressed, he made sure to praise the young boy's skill. The following day, General Chung visited Tiwo's home to share important news. The kingdom was conducting a recruitment process to form a new contingent of special soldiers, drawing candidates from various regions. His purpose was to obtain permission to take Piao to be trained as one of these soldiers. Although Shin did not receive the same offer, he was happy for Piao's opportunity and encouraged his friend to follow his dream. That night, before parting, Piao and Shin had one last training session with their wooden swords and made a mutual promise to keep pursuing their goals in their own ways. Shin committed to training harder and harder in hopes of one day earning a similar chance and moving closer to his dream of becoming a great general. In the days that followed, Shin intensified his training, pushing himself harder on the hills and refining his sword technique. Determined to surpass his limits, his rigorous training proved effective when, in a remarkable display of strength, he managed to break a rock with his wooden sword, demonstrating how much his fighting skills had improved. A few days after this impressive achievement, while resting in his secret spot, Shin was suddenly met with an unexpected arrival: his friend Piao, gravely wounded and near death. In his final moments, Piao explained that a coup had taken place in the kingdom. The king's younger brother plotted to assassinate him and seize the throne. Amid the chaos, the royal officials used Piao as a decoy, making him pose as the king to mislead the conspirators. This sacrifice cost him his life, and now he was there to give Shin one last piece of advice. Piao handed Shin a map, instructing him to go to a village marked on it. He explained that this village housed a group of warriors who could train Shin to become even stronger. Without wasting time, Shin rushed toward the village, determined to follow his friend's instructions. On the way, however, he was ambushed by a band of thieves. Thanks to his intense training, he managed to face them head-on and defeat them all on his own. After escaping the attackers, Shin continued his journey until he reached the village indicated by Piao. There he found a small cabin, where a king named Ying Zheng, who had fled the kingdom to escape the coup, was hiding. King Zheng then revealed to Shin that General Chung had brought Piao to the palace on purpose, because Piao bore a striking resemblance to the king himself. They had intended to use Piao to deceive the traitorous officials who had sided with the king's younger brother, Prince Chung Jiao, in the coup. Meanwhile, the royal army reached Tiwo's home and discovered Piao's lifeless body. The general allied with Prince Chung Jiao soon realized that the man he had killed earlier was not the king, but a commoner named Piao. At the same time, Shin, who had just discovered that the kingdom had deceived and sacrificed Piao, was furious with King Ying Zheng. During their heated argument, an assassin sent by Prince Chung Jiao suddenly appeared in the cabin with the intention of killing the king. The assassin provoked Shin, trying to convince him to kill the king himself, claiming that the monarch and his allies were the true ones responsible for Piao's death. However, Shin distrusted the assassin, suspecting that he might actually be the one truly responsible for Piao's death. Instead of following his suggestion, Shin attacked him. After an intense fight, with deadly strikes exchanged on both sides, Shin finally managed to defeat and kill the assassin. With this, he avenged Piao's death and protected King Yingzheng from an imminent threat. After the battle, Shin returned to the king, expressing his frustration at still being unable to cope with Piao's death. The king, however, tried to calm him, explaining that Piao's suffering had been a sacrifice to save the entire kingdom. He stressed that it was crucial for him to remain alive in order to prevent the royal power from falling into the hands of his younger brother, whose cruel and corrupt nature posed a grave danger to the realm. Convinced by the king's words, Xin agreed to join forces to build a new army and defeat Prince Cheng Jiao, ensuring that Piao's sacrifice would not be in vain. Meanwhile, Cheng Jiao reacted with deep disappointment and rage upon learning that Ying Zheng was still alive. He ordered his allies to send more assassins to hunt down his older brother. The next day, while the king and Xin were walking through the forest, they were ambushed by another assassin who used a weapon with poisoned needles. Xin, relying on his martial skill, fought fiercely and managed to decapitate the assassin with his sword. However, during the battle, one of the poisoned needles struck him, causing him to lose consciousness. The king acted quickly to save Xin and took care of him until he finally recovered from the poisoning. When Xin awoke, they were suddenly confronted by a group of soldiers who stormed into their hideout. To their surprise, these soldiers were part of the royal army led by General Cheng, a loyal ally to King Ying Zheng. This renewed alliance gave both the king and Xin hope to continue their struggle for the kingdom. After swearing his loyalty to the king, General Cheng offered his support in creating a plan to reclaim the throne from Prince Cheng Jiao, who was now wielding power. While the general and the king plotted their strategies, Prince Cheng Jiao, still frustrated by his failure to eliminate his brother, took a bold step. He proclaimed himself king in front of the entire army, consolidating his position as the legitimate ruler. Meanwhile, Ying Zheng was discouraged, as his own army was far smaller compared to the forces commanded by Cheng Jiao. Aware of this disadvantage, one of his generals advised him to seek support from the mountain tribes in hopes of forming an alliance that could balance their military strength. King Ying Zheng agreed to the strategy and ordered his army to march toward the tribal regions. The journey was long and challenging, through dangerous terrain and winding paths. When they finally reached the tribal borderlands, they were met with hostility. The mountain tribes showed no sympathy for the king's presence, and instead of offering help, captured the entire army and held them hostage. Brought before the tribal leader, King Ying Zheng explained his situation and pleaded for help to reclaim the throne stolen by his younger brother. However, his request was initially rejected, as the tribal leaders still remembered the massacre of their warriors, orchestrated by royal authorities years earlier. That past betrayal had left deep scars, making it nearly impossible for Ying Zheng to gain their trust. Still, the king refused to give up. Recognizing the importance of gaining their support, he made a heartfelt apology to the tribe, taking responsibility for the mistakes committed by past royal officials. His humility and sincerity surprised the tribal leader, who decided to forgive Ying Zheng and agreed to aid him in retaking the throne from the usurper. With this new alliance, the mountain tribe's warriors joined King Ying Zheng's army, and together they began planning an assault on the royal palace. King Ying Zheng, together with General Cheng and Xin, began devising a strategy to attack Prince Cheng Jiao's army from multiple directions. The plan involved dividing their forces into two armies. The first, led by Xin and General Cheng, would launch a direct assault, while the second, commanded by the king himself disguised as a mountain tribesman, would be supported by the tribal leader and his warriors in a more stealthy approach. The next day, as the combined forces marched toward the kingdom, the mountain tribe's leader requested a meeting with the commander of the royal army, claiming that his troops wished to join Prince Cheng Jiao's side. Believing in their good intentions, the commander allowed them into the kingdom. With this ruse, the mountain tribe and King Ying Zheng's army managed to infiltrate the city and launch a surprise attack against the soldiers guarding the palace gates. With the operation underway, the battle to reclaim the throne had begun, and the king was determined to win with the help of his new allies. Following the strategy, King Ying Zheng ordered Xin and the First Army to advance through a secret route, while he, alongside the Second Army and the tribal leader, attacked the main path. The monumental battle began with the mountain tribes launching a fierce assault against the kingdom's defenders. Thanks to their strength and skill, the king's forces managed to break through much of the enemy's defenses. Meanwhile, Shin and his army faced a major obstacle on their way to the royal palace, a giant monster guarding the secret passage. The battle against the beast was grueling, as it was powerful and nearly unbeatable. Even so, Shin, with his extraordinary skill with the sword, managed to slay the creature with a single decisive strike, allowing his army to move forward. After defeating the monster, Shin and his soldiers infiltrated the royal palace. Their mission was clear: find and kill Prince Chengjiao. However, upon entering the throne room, Shin found the prince arrogantly seated on the throne, seemingly unconcerned. Instead of fighting himself, Chengjiao summoned one of the most powerful generals in the kingdom, General Ji, to face Shin. Without hesitation, Shin accepted the challenge. The battle was intense, with both warriors displaying exceptional swordsmanship. With every strike, the tension grew, but Shin's fighting spirit and determination proved stronger. In the end, he defeated General Ji and emerged victorious. With his trusted general dead, Prince Chengjiao panicked and attempted to flee the palace, but upon reaching the gates, he found himself surrounded by King Yingzheng and the mountain tribe's army. The king, now leading his forces, had the traitorous prince under his control, and the kingdom was at last on the brink of being freed from his tyranny. It took little effort for Yingzheng to defeat Chengjiao, killing him with a single strike. Shortly after this victory, General Aok, known as the strongest general of a neighboring kingdom, approached Yingzheng and asked why he had started this war. The king explained that his goal was to reclaim the throne in order to prevent it from being used for selfish gain, and that his greater vision was to unify all the kingdoms of China to bring justice and peace. Hearing these words, General Aok agreed with the king's ideals and promised to support his mission to establish peace. However, one of the generals still loyal to Chengjiao refused to accept his master's defeat and ordered his troops to attack both General Aok and the king. Aok's response was immediate and effortless. He defeated all the soldiers with a single blow. Outraged, the traitorous commander then attempted to attack King Yingzheng directly. But Shin, ever vigilant, intervened swiftly, drew his sword, and killed the general on the spot. Shin's heroic actions were praised by General Aok, who even remarked that Shin would one day become one of the greatest generals in the kingdom. Before departing, Aok asked Shin his name, and the young warrior proudly introduced himself, ensuring he would not be forgotten. With Prince Chengjiao defeated and the traitorous generals slain, King Yingzheng and his army celebrated their victory, having reclaimed the throne from the usurpers. Even the mountain tribes rejoiced, sharing in the triumph as if it were their own. Before leaving the palace, the tribal leader presented Shin with a sword as a symbol of honor, recognizing his courage and passion. With the recognition of a respected general like Aok and the sword of the mountain tribe, Shin was now one step closer to achieving his dream of becoming a great general in the kingdom's future. The story ends here, but its moral is clear. We must always be cautious, for even those closest to us may betray us and stab us in the back.